No matter what type of traveler you are, I am positive that France has something you will absolutely love. From amazing food and wine to culture and history to markets, shopping, and some of the most beautiful landscapes I've ever seen, France is a popular vacation destination for good reason. And now that the Olympics are over, is fall the best time to visit? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome back to We in France. I'm Diane. Thank you for being here. And believe it or not, winter is my favorite season in general. But when it comes to traveling all around France, fall is going to be your best bet. Now, let me start off by saying there is no bad time to visit France. Each season has its pros and cons, but there might be a better time to visit. And in my opinion, that time is now, fall or autumn. Now, the September to November timeframe is the perfect time to visit, I feel, so I want to get into why. Just something for you to consider. All right, first thing, let's talk about the weather, which counts for a lot. Now, while there's a bit of variation depending on where you go around France, it is safe to say that pretty much the entire country is gorgeous during these fall months. The temperatures are cooler, that's a plus, especially later in the season. They're usually not freezing or dreary temperatures yet, making it perfect for exploring cities and countryside without being really uncomfortable how it can be like in the heat of summer. So temperatures are in your favor here. And the other thing, you don't have to deal with bulky clothes, all those coats and sweaters you'd have to pack for a winter trip. Now, to give you some specifics here in Angers, where I live in the Pays de la Loire, the average October high temperature is 17 Celsius or 62 Fahrenheit with a bit of sun. And that makes it very comfortable when you're out and about doing touristy things. Now, to give you another example, further south in Marseille, the average October high temperature is 21 Celsius, which is 70 Fahrenheit. Now, keep in mind that metropolitan France is the third largest country in Europe. That's after Russia and Ukraine. And it covers about 213,000 square miles, which is more or less the same size as the state of Texas in the United States. So there is a bit of variation in the climate and fall temperatures, but overall, you really can't go wrong visiting during the fall. Plus, another favorite of mine that's always been my favorite, even when I lived back in New Jersey, is the fall colors, the landscapes, the changing leaves and hues of red and orange. It is beautiful, especially out where I live along the Loire River here outside of Angers. And it is my favorite time of year to make a scenic drive along the river. So if you're out by me, do that. And also, let me give a nod to the Palace of Versailles in the Paris region. It is gorgeous this time of year with the gardens and just the fall foliage in its full glory. The trees are beautiful, so check that out if you're in the area. Now, some of you out there might be tempted by the summer weather, but honestly, I'd say summer is the worst time to visit. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a winter lover at heart, really. But the summer heat, it can be a pain. And yes, I'm biased because I told you I hate heat in general. But even if you're not in the south of France, it can still get uncomfortably hot elsewhere. And remember, France doesn't have AC everywhere. Cool air isn't going to be blaring on you like everywhere you go. Some places do, but it's not going to be quite as cool as places in the US. And, if you're staying in a fourth-story walk-up, going up and down stairs time and time again, especially with groceries and bags and suitcases, that can get really old really quick, even if it's not quite sweltering out. So just things to consider. No matter what time of year you travel, you're going to want to avoid the language barrier. So let me introduce you to today's sponsor, the Vasco Translator V4, your easy-to-use, pocket-sized language companion. With Vasco Translator V4, you can instantly translate speech and even images into over 70 languages with the simple touch of a button. Look how it translates the text in this image. The device has a large 5-inch touchscreen, and it's easy to use even if you're not tech savvy. It also has a powerful battery that will last you 5 days on one single charge. But that's not all. The Vasco Translator V4 features a two-way instant translation mode with 2 dual mics, making it perfect for real-time conversation. Simply speak into your phone, and in half a second, the Vasco Translator will translate your words without the background noise into the target language. Let me show you that in action.
Bonjour, est-ce que vous avez fait votre choix?
Hello, have you made your choice?
Yes, I'd like the chicken with olives, please, and a glass of white wine.
Oui, je voudrais le poulet aux olives, s'il vous plaît, et un verre de vin blanc.
With a 96% accuracy rate and the best native pronunciation on the market, the Vasco Translator V4 is a must for your next trip. It's like having your own personal interpreter on the go. The Vasco Translator V4 is the perfect tool for travelers of all levels, and it works anywhere there's cell phone reception. No Wi-Fi needed for it to work right out of the box in 200 countries. And there are no roaming charges either. Now be sure to use code WE10 and my link below for a special discount. Now back to the video. All right, next let's talk about the crowds. And I don't know how you feel about crowds and how patient you are in general, but it's definitely something to consider when you figure out when you want to come to France. And it's a big reason why I personally avoid peak season. The crowds can be brutal in France. Like any crowds that I was used to in the US, times that by 10. It can be brutal here in the summer because people travel pretty much all over, especially to coastal areas. You'll see families and just tons of people everywhere. So tourist attractions all over will be busier. So will hotels, restaurants, the sidewalks, and a big one, of course, the roads, the highways, the autoroute. The traffic is no joke. So if you want to avoid battling tourists for every inch of space in the Louvre and all the other places you go, consider coming in the fall. Instead, the vast majority of people during the fall, they're back at work, they're back at school, which means crowds are significantly smaller. You will thank me later. You'll be able to enjoy attractions without feeling overwhelmed. You'll have more space, just have fewer lines to wait in, and honestly, I feel you'll have a more relaxed experience. Now, there is one caveat that I need to point out, and that is the school holidays. One falls in the Toussaint break. It's the end of October. It's a 2-week break. Kids are not in school nationwide during this Halloween timeframe. This year, it spans from October 19th to November 4th. And the dates do change each year, though, but those are the dates for 2024. And yes, some families, they do go on vacation during this time, but it's nowhere near as busy as the peak summer season. Just want you to be aware of that vacation break for school kids, because if you see kids out and about and you're wondering why they aren't in school, that's why. And when I first came to France, funny story, I thought a ton of kids were homeschooled because I'd see them out and about during the day, and that's just not the case. But schools do have a bunch of breaks, and you should be aware of these and plan accordingly, just something to be aware of. And I will link the school holiday calendar below in the description so you can take a look. All right, and this brings me to my next point, which is the cost. Now, like most areas of the world, France is not an exception. Travel is generally cheaper at off-peak times. And in France, this means avoid summer travel if you want to save some money. And you might think, well, of course, I'm going to avoid summer travel. But I'm telling you, in France, summer travel can be brutal. But do this also if you want to save some money, not only on your flight, but also on your accommodations. You'll find that hotels and rental properties, Airbnbs and what have you, they are going to be the most expensive in the summertime, in this peak season. So if you're on a budget or you just want to save a few bucks, definitely consider the fall time frame. All right, next up, this is a fun one. There are a bunch of festivals and other fall-related events. So if you're feeling festive, you really enjoy the fall season, and you want to see how the French do it, fall has a whole bunch of great options, many of which are actually free or they just have a small entry fee. So I'm talking about everything from wine and food festivals to things that celebrate gardening and music, and there's really something for everyone. And I personally feel that festivals are a great way to experience French culture and to also have fun at the same time. So I want to point out a few of note. One is down in Marseille in the south of France. It is the Fiesta des Suds. It's a music festival, October 10th to 13th, 2024. Also down around there in Provence, we have the Ventoux Saveur, all kinds of local food and drink to discover now through October 27th. 2024. Just a note, I love festivals like these where you can learn about the local specialties, meet the producers, and even taste the yummy treats, depending on where you're going. So that's a good one. If you're here by me, by the Loire Valley, the Chaumont-sur-Loire Festival, it's an international garden festival through November 4th. And then if you're heading to the capital in Paris from the 9th to the 13th of October, you have a wine harvest festival. That's the Fête des Vendanges de Montmartre. If you're into wine, you want to see how that's done, go there. And then taking it north to Normandy in the port town of Honfleur, October 10th through 12th, for the 29th annual Fête de la Crevette et Pêche, and that's dedicated to the sea, shells, fishing, shrimp, that sort of thing. And that's just a sampling of some of the bigger events, but you'll find little fall harvest festivals all over France just celebrating this autumn time period, and they are worth a look. And definitely be sure to triple check the official event websites before you plan anything specifically around the festival, because dates and details do change. So definitely check those out ahead of time just to make sure you don't miss anything. Okay, next, this seasonal produce. And yes, there's amazing food year-round in France, but seasonal fruits and vegetables that you find during the fall, they are some of my favorites. So if you're into things like stews and squash and dishes with apples, you're definitely in for a treat. And two things I will specifically point out. These are things I kind of learned about after moving to France. One is called a petit marron. It translates to a red curry squash, I believe it's called. Or if you're in the UK, you guys call it an onion squash. And this was something that I wasn't familiar with back home in the US. It's kind of a cross between a pumpkin and a squash. Bright orange, you could roast it, you can make a soup out of it. So squash lovers, fall is the time to visit if you're into that stuff. Also, apple lovers. There are a bunch of apple varieties, and there's one that I've kind of fallen in love with. I don't know if it's exactly local to me, but you can find it here in the fall. And it's called Tentation, or Temptation in English. They're light green in color, they're perfect, pretty sweet, but with a bit of tart. I believe they're a cross between the Greifer variety and Golden Delicious. And if you're kind of a red apple lover, try these anyway. They're really good. Also, if you're into wine and drinks, Beaujolais Nouveau. That's November 21st of this year, and that's when the new wine comes out. And if you're not familiar, Beaujolais, it's a fruity young red wine. Comes out every year on the third Thursday of November. There's usually a little celebration for that day. So fireworks, music, some festivals to celebrate, as well as tastings in wine shops and even supermarkets. And just to note, you will not find pumpkin spice products here in France at that same scale that you would in the US. Pumpkin is mostly a savory flavor for things like soup, aside from things like pumpkin spice drinks at Starbucks, which do exist. Culturally speaking, pumpkin spice is not a phenomenon here in France like it is in the United States, where you can pretty much find supermarket shelves this time of year overflowing with coffee creamers, cookies, pumpkin spice candles, and even popcorn. And my dad sent me this pic from a New Jersey Whole Foods that I'll put up here just so you could see. And this was just a small selection of all the pumpkin spice stuff that was just out like near the cash register. And this was early September that he took this pic. The French do have a spice called quatre épices, 4 spices, which you can find in any grocery store. That is common, but there's no cultural phenomenon about it, right? So that would kind of translate to pumpkin spice. It is ginger, cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg. And that's used in baking and various recipes, but this whole crazy popular pumpkin spice thing has not made it to France in the same way that we would find it in the United States. Also, another perk of visiting in the fall is that you'll have a bit of daylight, especially in late September and October. Unlike the winter, when the sun here in France, it rises quite late and sets early, probably earlier than you're used to. And it was something that surprised me and also my family when they visited. One year, we all went to Brittany over the holidays. And to give you an example, just this year, on December 20th, the sun rises in West Palm Beach, Florida, near where my family lives, at 7:04 a.m., and it sets at 5:31 p.m. I'll put those up on the screen. And then on that same date, December 20th, this year in Saint-Malo in Brittany, France, the sun will rise at 8:57 a.m. and sets at 5:14 p.m. So there are fewer hours of daylight in France in the winter. That's something you might not realize, and you might even find yourself sleeping a bit later if your windows are open to natural light in France, because that sun does rise a bit later than what you might be used to. Okay, so now let me ask you some questions to help narrow down if fall is the right time for you to visit. Although I personally highly recommend traveling to France this time of year, it might not be right for you. So 1, where in France will you be visiting? This is a super important question, both to consider from a weather perspective and also in terms of crowds and activities. Now, the south of France is going to have warmer weather overall. That's just how it is, than say maybe a trip to Lille in the north. So if you're more of a warm weather person, the opposite of me, and grayer and possibly rainier skies, they're going to put you in a bad mood and you're just not going to have a great time being a little more bundled up. Maybe the south of France is a better option. Trips to France aren't cheap, so you need to do what's going to make you happiest. Or if you want to visit cooler areas, maybe do so in late spring, right? Now, talking about activities, what activities are important to you? Again, if you're a beach kind of person, you want to enjoy swimming, maybe boating, fishing, anything having to do with water, you might not enjoy a trip where temperatures are cooler and where you're more bundled up. So definitely narrow your trip's focus and pinpoint exactly what you look forward to doing in France, and then just plan around that. I will say that lots of worthwhile things in France are not season specific at all. You can do fine dining anytime, go to museums, and if you're looking to visit Paris or another big city, you can visit all the main tourist attractions any time of year. So maybe weather is really not that important to you. So in that case, there's no best time to visit. All right, number 3, do long lines and crowds seriously stress you out? And how long is your trip? Are you only coming for a few days? If lines and crowds stress you out at home, they're going to be that much more annoying when you're jet lagged, when you're trying to navigate an unfamiliar area in an unfamiliar language. So just avoid peak season, spare yourself the trouble. And also, if you're only visiting for 5 days or a week or even less, do you really want to be spending your time dodging a ton of other tourists and waiting in line? Pretty much everywhere, bakery, restaurants, tourist attractions, traffic. No, I'm guessing you don't. So definitely come more in the September to November timeframe. And honestly, over the years, fall has become my favorite timeframe to do personal travel around France. I hope I go somewhere interesting soon, and I hope it'll become your favorite time to visit as well. But ultimately, that comes down to you. It's for you to decide. And I want to hear from you down in the comments below when you visited France, if you've enjoyed the season, that you chose to visit in. And with that, I will leave it here for today. Thank you for being here, as always, and I will see you right back here on We in France soon. Salut!